So let's go ahead and jump into this one. Spider-Man Homecoming was released in 2017, directed by John Watts, starring Tom Holland, Jacob Batalon, Zendaya, Michael Keaton, and this was the first full-length Spider-Man film set within the MCU. He made his debut the previous year in Captain America Civil War, and everybody loved him when he first debuted. I really loved his portrayal in Civil War. And then this movie came out because, well, first of all, it was already greenlit before Civil War, but he proved very popular with audiences, especially Spider-Man fans, upon release of Civil War, so they really fast-tracked it. And, well, let's go ahead and start talking about it. Starting off with the good, Tom Holland still does a good job as Spider-Man in this movie. He's not my absolute favorite Spider-Man, but I feel like he's got the quirkiness and the awkwardness of Peter Parker down perfectly. Probably on par with the Tobey Maguire version. Probably not better than the Tobey Maguire version. I still have a lot of nostalgia for the Tobey Maguire version, so either way, Tom Holland does a great job both as Peter and as Spider-Man in this movie. Jacob Batalon plays his best friend, Ned Leeds, who in the comics is actually Miles Morales' friend. But either way, I thought he was a really funny character. I really liked his performance. I'm really excited to see him again in No Way Home, depending on how much screen time he's actually going to have. I guess I will find that out tomorrow. But either way, he was very, very funny. Happy Hogan, played by Jon Favreau, he's been in the MCU since the beginning, since the first Iron Man. He actually directed the first two Iron Man movies, and I really liked him in this movie. He's always been one of my personal favorite characters in the MCU, and I'm glad that they brought him back to be more of an Uncle Ben type character to Spider-Man. By the way, there's no Uncle Ben in this movie, not even mentioned, but either way, Happy is a very fun character, like he always is, played terrifically by Jon Favreau. The main villain in this movie is Vulture, played by Michael Keaton, and I loved this villain. I absolutely loved him. I thought he did an amazing job in the role of Vulture. He's not one of those typical evil, I'm gonna blow up the world type villains like the MCU tends to have in just about everything they do now. No, this is just a guy who was wronged by the system and wants to provide for his family. I thought that was a really nice touch to bring back to Spider-Man villains. Not somebody who doesn't even have a vendetta against Spider-Man, you know, like Electro and Green Goblin did in the last Amazing Spider-Man movie. The less I talk about them, the better. But I really love Vulture in this movie. There's a scene between him and Peter when they're sitting in a car. He's taking Peter and his daughter to a homecoming dance, and it's just such an intense scene because Vulture just puts together, like right there, that Peter is Spider-Man just by the way his daughter is talking. And his acting in the scene is so intense and creepy. It's absolutely amazing, and it's just great. Just really check out the scene if you have not seen the movie, which if you're here, you probably have seen the movie, but either way. I really like Hannibal Buress as a comedian, and his supporting character in this movie, Coach Wilson, it's absolutely hilarious. He's only in about 2 or 3 scenes, but he's hilarious when he is on screen, especially in the whole detention scene where Peter just walks out of detention.
That you know is wrong.
Where you going?
Just think to
Get
yourself.
back here.
It's hilarious. I love it. Shocker is a secondary villain I didn't care much for the first Shocker, played by Logan Marshall Green, but the second Shocker, played by Bokeem Woodbine, really great character. Shocker isn't really a top tier Spider-Man villain. He's more of a B or C list villain, and so I liked his inclusion as basically just the muscle for the main villain. I thought he was a fun villain. Bokeem Woodbine was obviously having fun. And Donald Glover plays Aaron Davis in this movie. And if you don't know Spider-Man comics and lore, Aaron Davis is Miles Morales' uncle in the comics, who eventually becomes the Prowler, which is also in the Into the Spider-Verse movie, which I will not be reviewing in this series like I originally wanted to. That'll be reviewed next year before Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 comes out. Either way, I really liked the casting of him as Aaron Davis because in season 2, I think it is, of Community, his character in the show, Troy Barnes, he wears a Spider-Man shirt, and that scene was actually what inspired Stan Lee to create the character of Miles Morales. And I thought that was a really, really good nod to the origins of the character. And finally, the action scenes in this movie were actually really good. Aside from the ferry scene, I'll get to that later. Either way, I really like the action scenes. The final battle between Spider-Man and Vulture I thought was really good. A lot of people say it's one of the weaker of the MCU final battles, but I personally really liked it because it was more of a callback to the classic Spider-Man final battles of the first 2 Raimi movies. Nothing big and grand in scale, just, you know, the hero and the villain going at it for a little bit until it reaches a natural conclusion. I really like that. And also the score for this movie, absolutely terrific. And moving on from that, we are led to what I did not like about this movie. And there's a few things I did not like about this movie. Not a lot, but a few. First of all, I didn't like the casting of Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. It's just, she's way too young. Even Sally Field was a little older as the character, so I just have to dock points. She's too young, even though she's an amazing actress. I love her as an actress. I just am not feeling her as Aunt May. I'm still not, but I guess we'll see more whether or not she's good or not. But in No Way Home, and I didn't like the portrayal of Flash Thompson in this movie either. And again, Tony Revolori, I think that's his name. I'm terribly sorry if I mispronounced that. But he's a great actor as well. Just watch the movie Dope and the Grand Budapest Hotel. I thought those were 2 absolutely amazing movies. He does amazing in them. But I didn't really like how they did Flash Thompson in this movie. He is a little improved in Far From Home, and we'll get to that tomorrow, but still, I really did not like it. He's so childish in his way of picking on Peter. It's elementary grade insults that I just wasn't a fan of, honestly. And finally, elephant in the room, the inclusion of Iron Man in this movie. Yes, I love the character of Iron Man. I always have, and I always will. And he's not in the movie a whole bunch, but I just feel like, specifically the ferry scene, when you get Peter trying to, do something heroic, you get Iron Man coming in, having to fix the mess, instead of, Peter having to live with consequences. Oh, here comes Tony Stark, here to fix the mess. Wasn't a big fan of that, but I also didn't like the fact that they literally confirmed at the end of the movie that Tony and Pepper are still together, but he's hitting on Aunt May in the beginning of the movie. It's just weird. It feels weird. I wish he had only been mentioned at best in this movie, but hey, what are you going to do about it? Final thoughts. I really like Spider-Man Homecoming. It's not the greatest Spider-Man movie of all time. Definitely far from the worst. I still really enjoy this movie. Spider-Man Homecoming is a fun Spider-Man entry, and I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. So that was my thoughts on Spider-Man Homecoming. What did you think about this movie? Let me know down in the comments what you thought. I would love to hear from you down there. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share this video, and I will see you all tomorrow for Far From Home.